Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How you doing tonight?
Good. Got to turn on my other light there a little bit. Yeah, really good, Bruce. I mean, that was obviously that was an overtime for the ages. That was another taste of the Oilers that started out the season as the NHL's best team. They're starting to look in moments again like that team, and they sure look like that team for a lot of the game, which only added to the frustration of them being down 0-2 at the start of the third period. I think if we were honest, both of the, I was getting ready to write a really nasty game report. And I'm sure you were getting ready with a few choice words on the podcast, which you will still have, but they will be tempered by exhilaration and endorphins, positive endorphins. So, Bruce, will do two good things each, two bad things, and two numbers. What is your first good thing?
Yeah, well, I got to go with the last thing, which was a pulsating overtime period, all 4 minutes 36.6 seconds of it, during which time the Oilers outshot Vancouver 9-1, and by our count of grade A shots, it was 8-1. With every shot the Oilers had except one, I guess that was basically a golden scoring opportunity. This guy Spencer Martin in the net for Vancouver. Someone called him Spencer Martin Brodeur. He was stopping everything, and he was stopping it with, he made two saves with the shaft of his stick, one off of Yamamoto late in the third period, and then one off of Nuge in overtime, where they beat him blocker side, and they clipped the little skinny little shaft of his stick. That's for a goalie. That's usually you got to be pretty lucky to catch it with that. A couple times pucks hit him and then bounced off the post, but pucks were hitting him. I mean, Draisaitl and McDavid, especially Draisaitl, I thought he was fantastic in overtime.
Oh, God.
Just kept bringing it. And then he made a great defensive play to pick off a deadly-looking cross-seam pass that there was a Vancouver guy sweeping in behind everybody, and Draisaitl used the paddle to take that one down, but he was just driving. 11 shots on net in total, and I bet you 4 of them maybe came in the OT, and I haven't checked that yet, but the Oilers just kept coming in waves, and Vancouver had one wave for which Mikko Koskinen had the big answer at the big time. That would have really been unjust if Vancouver had scored on that one chance.
Oh, God, that would have been so painful. And Nurse, he got deked out of his jockstrap on that one, Bruce. He just totally deked. And, it turns out that he becomes the hero, of course, a moment later.
Besser beat him anyway. It was a good play, but Koskinen had the answer. But the Oilers kept sweeping down. Vancouver, they were down a few courts tonight. I mean, they're missing their main two goalies. They had 3 forwards out, and Edmonton had every right to be favored in this game. But it sure took a long time for them to really take charge of it. But I think in the 3-on-3 overtime, for the most part, they did. And they did everything they wanted to except for put the puck in the net. And they finally did that when Nurse, after Nuge won a nice battle to win the puck in his own end, Nurse took off on an end-to-end rush and then fed it across backhand feet right on the tape of McDavid to tap it under the crossbar. And Nurse would be a good player if only he could make a pass, David.
Yeah, I wonder all the Darnell Nurse lovers out there. There is a faction of fans who has never liked Darnell Nurse, who would have traded him out of town years ago, and is bitter about his contract. Darnell Nurse every now and again looks like it's a $9 million defenseman. He's going to be. He's been so. The funny thing is, people are already complaining about how he's going to be overpaid, but he's been so underpaid for the last 4 or 5.
Pretty much the whole time, yeah.
Yeah, that. Maybe it's turnabout as fair play. It was just such a spectacular rush, Bruce, and such a great play, to put it into the slot for McDavid on the backhand like he did. Connor McDavid, the one play that Connor McDavid made in the overtime, Bruce, he there was so many of them, but it was part of a sequence of other great plays, of course. But he kind of got the puck in the high slot, and it was like Magic Johnson to Michael Cooper for the alley oop. He did this backhand pass to Draisaitl, who burst into the crease area and tipped it on net for just a very, very dangerous shot. But that backhand pass by McDavid was such a basketball move. It was just so
Yeah.
clever. It was like a bounce pass actually, rather than alley oop. Off the backhand. Draisaitl was in on 6 grade A shots, 6 of the Oilers' 8 grade A shots, but
No.
not the winning goal. Almost every other one. I don't know if I said this for the game, Bruce. It was 26-9 for the Oilers for grade A shots. This would have been a bitter, bitter loss for the Oilers. I guess if they had lost an overtime, they would have got the loser point, and they would have come
Yeah.
back. So there would have been some solace. But
Right.
um, if they hadn't tied up this game, that would have been really tough. Which segues to my good thing,
Mm-hmm.
Leon Draisaitl's tying goal,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a. I mean, in the end, he was in on 15. He made major contributions to 15 grade A shots, and McDavid made 14 major contributions to grade A shots. These guys were just giving it, but they both had their moments where they made mistakes. McDavid on the power play twice, and Draisaitl early in the game was caught out on a couple plays that led to grade A shots for Vancouver. But everything changed in the third period when they got that incredible power play. And on the power play itself, they had 3 grade A shots, 2 by Draisaitl. Once Bouchard set him up, once McDavid set him up for his famous executioner shot where he just lashes his stick towards the puck and the goalie. On the rebound on that same sequence,
Oh,
Pulsating
yeah.
jammed the puck on net and how he didn't score. But then, even after the power play ended, it continued for another
Yeah.
20 seconds until they
Yeah.
scored. The Oilers were just totally, totally buzzing. And it was a great effort behind the net by McDavid and Puljujarvi to win the puck, get it over to Nugent Hopkins, who made a fantastic pass, across crease, dart right to Leon Draisaitl, who again lashed that executioner shot on net and scored the tying goal. It was a fantastic moment for that power play unit coming alive again. And I have to give credit to Evan Bouchard, who was part of the mistake on the shorthanded goal. He and McDavid were the two main culprits on that goal. Bouchard giving up the breakaway, but Bouchard he wasn't in on the sequence that led to the goal, but he did a great job orchestrating that entire power play and a lot of those chances. So he looked good out there again. But kudos to Leon Draisaitl. What a hockey player. What a shooter.
Yeah, it looks like he's got his stuff together again after a fairly extended dry spell. I mean, tonight he only had the 1 point, that one goal, but 11 shots on net, 17 shot attempts.
Wow.
And that's not without being particularly selfish. I thought he passed up a couple of shooting opportunities to try and feed teammates. He made some good passes along the way, and he really dominated large chunks of his 26 minutes that he played in this game.
What's your second good thing, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ryan Nugent Hopkins. Uh, Very welcome return to the lineup of the Nuge that um, stabilizes the Oilers in a lot of areas. Uh, there was a little bit of a false I was going to say false flag, but that's a political term. Where it would look like they were actually going to go with the center's three model in yesterday's practice, and then of course by game time tonight, Tippett had rethought everything and decided that he wanted to stack his top six as he usually does, and Nugent Hopkins went about his business on the wing, but he also went about his business on the power play, on the penalty kill, and in overtime, 3-on-3. Like the guy can play in all situations. And tonight, I really liked his game. he won a few battles along. There was one in overtime where it was him against all three Canucks, and he came out with the puck along the end boards in Vancouver territory. And he was, he played a good, determined game with a little bit of edge to it, and that's really when he's at his best. There are times I wish he was edgier, but when he brings the edge, he's uh, uh, nearer the top of his game. And I thought for a guy who hadn't played in like a month, December 31st was his last game. I thought he might take him a game or two to, really get his legs back under him and stuff, but that wasn't a problem. And see, what did he play tonight? Because this is coming off of that.
22, 20, 21,
22,
30.
22:56.
Wow.
So 23 minutes, and he was still going hard right to the end of overtime. In fact, he was winning the battle that led to that final rush. So,
Yeah.
but good on him. It's just nice to see him. And that pass he gave to Drysdale, that was a thing of beauty. Quick glance up, boom, right on the tape from the far board's hash mark right onto Leon's tape on the other side of the ice. There was a lane there, and boom, the puck was through it and set up on a tee for Leon to lash it home.
He had a lower body injury, did he not? Like that's what I think we heard in the end. I think that was so for him to have his legs and to be able to skate like that was amazing. And Bruce, I thought he got stronger and better as the game went
Yes,
along. I thought he started to
absolutely.
get more into it, and you
Hmm.
know, as it went along. And as you mentioned, his play on JT Miller in overtime, there wasn't a good angle of it, but it was apparent that he poked the puck off Miller's stick, and that's how it went to Darnell. I think it went to
Yeah, I'm
Nurse.
surprised he didn't get an assist on that, but I haven't seen with the right
Yeah,
angle. You need to be looking up the boards to know for sure. But
maybe it was just a
whatever
stick check.
happened, yeah, he shook the puck free, whether he touched the actual puck or not. He shook it free, and Nurse jumped on it and jumped into the open ice. So,
It'll be interesting to see if they keep Nugent Hopkins with McDavid. We talked a lot last year how that didn't work,
mhm.
but it's a different combination when you have Cutter Yamamoto with those two. I really do believe
Mhm.
Yamamoto's a kind of a glue player who fills in and does a lot of things that help a line out without carrying the puck necessarily. And we'll see. Maybe that'll work. My other good thing is Cutter Yamamoto.
Good pick.
He was he was really unlucky not to score.
Oh,
He had three tip
I'll
shots,
say.
one of them off the crossbar. He had the
Hmm.
like late in the game, of course, there was off a Bouchard rebound. The old Bouch bomb was
Hmm.
fired on net, and Yamamoto got the rebound in the slot and slammed it on net. And as you mentioned, it went off the goalie's the end of his stick, the shaft of his stick.
I
So
couldn't
cut.
believe it because he'd had a
Yeah.
few bounces not go his way before that, and he thought that he had the winning goal, I'm sure, at that moment.
He had five grade A shots on net in total,
Hmm.
which is a pretty amazing. That's pretty good work for a night. He
Hmm.
played well all game. So he's my other good thing. It was kind of um, the top lines really carried the Oilers in this game, but man, did they ever carry the Oilers? They carried them right to victory. So although it was Ryan McLeod who scored that goal, the big goal that
The icebreaker.
the icebreaker. Yeah.
We were talking last podcast, I think, about when was the last time we saw the Oilers get a bad goal. Well, it finally
Yeah.
happened. And it's funny because Martin made so many astonishing saves tonight, but that one was just left a little hole, and McLeod's speed, and I think he surprised me a little bit with the shot, and it just found a little gap on the short side. And from that moment, I thought, we really do have a chance here because Vancouver is clearly fading, and there's still a
Yes.
lot of time on the clock. But they uh, they didn't waste. It wasn't like they wait. Sometimes there's a lot of time on the clock, and the next thing you know, there's 2 minutes left, and they're pulling the goalie, and it's too late. But they tied it about halfway through the third, and kind of, I think, played it fairly smart thereafter. Like there was no sort of dumb risks taken with the tie game in the third period. And I mean, you got to secure the 1 point. I mean, I hate the rule, but it is the rule. You got to play it. You got to play the game. And the game there was to secure the 1 point and then go after the second point. And boy, did they go after it when the time came. But
Yeah, that goal that Martin let in, it's almost like the stinker goal rule, right? You let in that stinker goal and all bets are off. Like the other team takes a lot of heart from that. And if it happens early in the game, you're not likely to win. And if it happens late in the game, well, you can lose then too. Martin did play fantastic through the game. I was wondering if he was somehow related to Seth Martin.
the great Trail Smoke Eaters and Father David Bauer, Team Canada goalie. Yes, so he
Yes.
played a little bit for St. Louis Blues on a troika with Glenn Hall and Jacques Plante. Can you imagine? And Seth Martin, like three of the most famous goalies of the middle of the 20th century. Maybe not many would rate Seth Martin that way, but I tell you, a whole lot of people in international hockey thought Seth Martin was the best goalie that was in that circuit.
Well, that's how I know of him, reading Anatoly Tarasov's great book, Road to
I bet,
Olympus.
I bet he
And
said good things about
he
him.
mentioned Seth Martin again and again and again. They just like were obsessed with Seth Martin, the Russians, where they studied him. You're like, how does this guy do that? Like, how does he do
Mhm.
these things? And like he was the model goalie that Tretiak was based on. Although, of course, Tarasov had such a huge ego, he had to, of course, devise the whole thing that Tretiak was going to be this new model, this new goalie, like the new Soviet man. And anyway, that's a tangent. But Tretiak's game was modeled after a crab. He
Mhm.
and Tarasov imagined a crab.
Oh yeah,
I don't know quite how that works, but it did work. All
double
right, Bruce.
jointed. Eh?
Yeah, let's move on to our bad things.
Mm.
Um, why don't you go first?
Sure, I'll go first with the first goal of the game. Scored, of course, by whoever is playing against the Oilers, because they always score first. And they did again tonight. And it was, there'd been a lot of back and forth. The Oilers certainly could have scored first on a number of occasions tonight, but it was a 4-on-4 where McDavid was in the penalty box. And it was one of those ones where they called a trip and a dive on the same time with Matthew Highmore uh, drawing the interference penalty on McDavid by diving, apparently, and the ref called both of them. Anyway, it was a 4-on-4, and I just thought Oilers sort of lost their focus and they kind of lost the plot. And they had the puck in their own end and they had it for a while, and they were sort of doing the Harlem Globetrotters thing where they're dropping passes, and they're not going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere. And finally, they get it out to center, and then Duncan Keith makes a lame, weak pass to try to get it up to Nugent Hopkins. He turns it over. Vancouver takes it in the neutral zone, and Elias Pettersson runs up the ice with the puck, and Fogel kind of tries to challenge him outside the blue line and just loses that battle. And then Cody Ceci kind of backs in and doesn't really stand up and close down the gap on him. And Mikko Koskinen kind of doesn't stand up on his toes and he backs into the net a little bit. And then Pettersson lets go of that laser that he's got right through Cece's legs, right through Cece's screen, and boom, into the top corner. And you and I were still arguing about whether that was an A or a B shot. I'm sympathetic to the goalie that never saw the darn thing because the defenseman was a better door than a window until he didn't block the shot. Anyway, and there's enough mistakes to go around that I think just to blame the goalie lets all these other mistakes off the hook. I was
No,
mad at
well,
the team on that sequence. There was
yeah,
a
I
lot of
I could tell,
weak,
Bruce.
soft plays, and it resulted in the first goal against again. And they got to stop with these weak, soft plays with the score 0-0.
I
That's
completely agree, Bruce, though, that other players made mistakes on that goal. I mean, that's obvious. But I also think this isn't a feature. This isn't a bug of Koskinen's game that he lets in goals like this. This is a feature. He plays back in his net. And there was no one else rushing up the ice with Elias Peterson. He had one play, shoot it on net. You might think you'd at least be at the top of the crease. If Koskinen is at the top of the crease, there is no way that goal goes in. But he's
right.
always back. He's back. And he lets in goals, I think, because of this style of play. He didn't have to see it if he is in the right position. like a lot of NHL goalies would be who play a slightly different style of play. It just would have hit him. He's a great big guy, get out the top of the crease. That is going to hit you. And the reason it's a B shot is, I think it, well, according to our rules, if the goalie should have made the save, then it's a B. He didn't. Then that's by definition a B shot. Doesn't mean CC didn't screen him, gave up too much gap, or Fogel couldn't have cut him off in the neutral zone better, or Keith, could have made it, just get the puck deep. But I think they were all to blame on it. And when the goalie's to blame, well, that's because he should have had it, and I think he should have had it from that shooting position. The goalie should have it, especially again with no other options for Peterson except that angled shot. So I didn't like it. Listen, it's fair enough to disagree with that, Bruce. There's going to be, if you went on Twitter, I think it would probably be 50-50, right? Half the people would be blaming Koskinen, I'm guessing, and then half the other people would be blaming everybody, like you're doing, and some people would be defending Koskinen. I haven't been on Twitter, so I don't know, but I'm just guessing. But I take I think on the 4-on-4, it's such an unusual situation, right? They don't practice it much, and they think it's time to get fancy, and like you do on 3-on-3, but it's not really. It's kind of a hybrid situation where you have to still kind of play power hockey, safe hockey. It's not 3-on-3, and it's not the first time they've been burnt on it this year. If my memory is correct, I think there's been at least one other time where they just got to, the players start circling in the zone, and the defensive players all get confused. I just a picture in my head, Patrick Kane moving with the puck in the zone, and the Oilers defensive coverage breaking down, and the Oilers getting scored on 4-on-4, and that's what happened. Well, it was just as you say, all of them backed off. All of them backed off, including the
goalie.
And that's how that goal went in. My bad thing, Bruce, is the bottom line players.
Yeah.
Bottom line players, Sevier, Derek Ryan, and Devon Shore. The Tippett line, we might call them. Yeah. Some fans might call it, like, it is a mystery. And even the media, the mainstream media guys are questioning Tippett. Like, how about that Tyler Benson, coach? Not so subtle hint, like, what the hell are you doing having him on the fifth line when he's easily the best player of that group of players? Like, just hustle, hitting. He could kill penalties as well as Ryan and Sevier at this point. I can assure you of that.
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be killing them any worse than they've been killing them lately. I wrote a post about that today, and those guys are getting lit up by it. It's insane how poor the PK has been. So, I mean, there's one silver line tonight. The PK was 1-for-1. So they got the first time in 9 games that they didn't give up a power play goal. So, but they mainly by staying out of the box.
And they had Sevier and Ryan out there at the start of that penalty kill. If they had been scored on then, people would have lost their minds. Then you would have been one of them. Yeah. No, not just you. Your story. The story you did in the narrative around the PK, like, it's talked about, and people are starting to figure out, like, who the culprits are. And I can't figure out for the life of me why Jesse Puljujarvi hasn't been given a chance on the penalty kill. He did play in Finland. Yep. When we were watching him, now and then he would be out there on the PK. He did fine. So I don't get that at all. But this is the Tippett line. He's got all the players that, fans regard as Tippett's pets were on the one line tonight. Devon Shore, Derek Ryan, and Colton Sevier. And I've liked all of those players at different times in different ways. Like, I do see them all as useful players, but I don't see not having Tyler Benson in that mix. I don't see it. I guess he wanted them all on the PK. Is that it? Like, you need them all, but can't you?
Well, you had Nuge back tonight, so you didn't need them all for the PK. And the following 3 Oilers forwards of the 12 had 0 shots on net tonight. Derek Ryan, Devon Shore, Colton Sevier. Hey, look at that. They played all on the same line, and not one of them had a shot on net. That's hard to do. Anyway, of course he was good. And as a line, they've thought off, and you could say your fourth line, if they saw off every night, you're happy with it. And that's what they've done as a trio. But during that same time, they've been getting crushed on the penalty kill, which is a large part of what Edmonton's bottom six is about in the Tippett era. So anyway, it just annoys me, David, as a long-standing fan of this team, watching young players shrivel up and die on the vine over and over again for it seems like a century. I'm not quite that old, but it's been a long damn time. They have decent young players, and yet something happens, and by the time they're 24 or 25, they've moved on from Edmonton, and maybe they have a career somewhere else, and maybe they don't. But Edmonton goes back to the well of bringing in 32-year-old guys that have played on 4 or 5 other teams over the time, and they don't ever develop their own depth players, right? I mean, they had Kyle Brodziak, they traded him for nothing. They had Andrew Cogliano, they had traded him for nothing. I mean, this isn't just a Ken Hall and Dave Tippett problem. It goes back decades, and it's still a problem. Like, anyway, maybe Ryan McLeod is going to be that player, where he's a high second round pick, but he's not sort of a golden boy high first round pick. That looks like he might be a support player for a long time. But you look around at other teams and you usually find that they got guys that they've been working into that role for a while, and it bugs me. Like it's a problem in the construction of the team that they're not able to do that.
McLeod is another player, Bruce. He regularly killed penalties, I think, in his first 2 seasons in Bakersfield.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, like this game, not a second out there. And he hasn't been, I don't think, getting much time. So it's you have that he's another fast guy with some length to him, like like Pulsating. You get those two guys out there, they'll stop those cross seam passes that have been killing the Oilers recently. They'll have a much better chance at least of doing so. I noticed that Tippett did go to Sevier and Ryan initially and then didn't go back to them. He had an unusual combination of Sidle and Yamamoto out there. I guess Dry has been used somewhat, but it's like the coach was, well, I'm not really screwing around here. I'm going to put out Sidle and Yamamoto to kill off this penalty. I'm not going to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going back to Sevier and Ryan, as much as I like them. And I'm not. Coach will like who he likes, and all coaches have their favorite players. But
Yep.
I agree with you. Like it's frustrating. Tyler Benson. Someone was postulating that he's been the most physical Oilers forward, and it might actually be true. I mean,
It was as
Cassian,
recently as last game.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
reward that guy with a seat in the press box.
yeah. Devon Shore's not been playing well. You could put, Benson with Sevier and Ryan.
Yep, sure.
Why not try that, or put Shore at center? And any one of the three, I would play Benson. Yeah, I agree. Shore at center is not anything. I kind of actually like Derek Ryan at center as a fourth line center. I think he's not a bad one. If he's that role, he can
Mm-hmm.
get it. He can get the job done. He like for instance tonight he did win all 4 of his faceoffs. Was out there for 30 seconds on the PK, got the job done. At even strength though, he's been playing in the last 6 weeks. He's been playing a lot better and not giving up much in the defensive end at all at even strength. So he's okay at fourth line, but Tyler Benson would be good too. So. All right, let's move on to our numbers, Bruce. What's your number?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 0-2, which is that score that we keep seeing on the big scoreboard over and over again. The Oilers, in their last 10 games, they've given up the first goal in all 10 games. They've given up the second goal in 6 of the 10 games that they've been down 2-0. And unbelievably, all 3 of their last 3 wins came from a 2-0 deficit. Well, but guess what? Along the way, they've gone 3-5-2 because they lost all the other games that they, gave up the first goal. And they have, it's a 29 game run now, David, where they've scored the first goal 4 times and they've allowed it 25 times, 25-4. And in those 29 games, they've given up the second goal 14 times. So they've been ahead 1-0 4 times. They've been behind 2-0 14 times. Like, I've never seen anything like it. It's just, they just can't ever seem to can't get the first goal at all. And even when they give up the first goal, half the time they give up the next goal as well, or more than half the time. They're just fighting from this deficit all the time. They have to do something to break out of that. They got to find a way to somehow get one in the first, however long it takes. I mean, earlier the problem was the first goal would be in on the first shot and be a minute into the game. It would already be 1-0. But here, the last little while, we've had two games in the last three where they were 0-0 right into the second period, and then finally they had the breakdown and gave one in where you say, well, it's not the defense, it's the fact the offense can't seem to ever score to break the ice. So whatever, it's an aggravating thing to say the least. It's 10 in a row, 16 out of 17.
Maybe they could get some power plays in the first period, and that would help. They don't seem to be getting a lot of power plays in the first period, I will say
No,
that.
this is true. Yeah, no, I looked that up at one time, and they were getting the first penalty in a lot of games. But David, you'd have to flip a coin 1,024 times before it came up tails 10 times in a row. If you're playing a truly 50-50 game, that's the odds. And whatever it is, it's not a 50-50 game for the Oilers. It seems like a 0-100 game.
Sure is hard to win. It is so hard to win when this keeps happening, obviously. I mean, that's the most obvious comment on
And
earth, but it's the truest comment too.
well, and even when you do win and you pull it off, now, okay, you've got McDavid's played 27, 28 tonight, and Draisaitl's played 26, 15, and now they got
Yeah.
to come back day after tomorrow with enough gas in the tank to try and win that game. And anyway, it's they did get the job done, and credit to them. They deserved the win in the fullness of time, 64 minutes and 36.6 seconds. They were the better team, but it took that long to finally get it solved.
Well, I think one good news is we might have Zach Hyman back in the lineup. And I'm suspecting he'll be with Sidle and Puljujarvi. They've been put together in practice, and I'm salivating to see that line. I think it's going to be fantastic. So that's a piece of good news. I'm guessing Perlini will come out of the lineup, and everything will be very similar. Other than that, yeah. So Bruce, my number is 2654. It's Evan Bouchard's ice time. It was second only to McDavid on the team, and 1 second more than Darnell Nurse played. He did that by playing 2017 at even strength, 132 shorthanded, and 505 on the power play. I don't think he was out in the overtime. He's not trusted there yet. He should be, but he's not, in my opinion. Anyway, he is trusted with major minutes, though. And, it's a two-way sword, because we've seen him at times this year get eaten alive in those heavier minutes. He kept a clean sheet at even strength, Bruce, in terms of not making any major mistakes on grade A shots. He did make the one on the power play where he gave up the breakaway. But at even strength, he was good tonight. He and Nurse were good. He was good on the power play for much of the time, good at shorthanded, and the coach is obviously going to him a lot. Just a really interesting player. I think as he gets his confidence about him and his game together, he does, I think, have the ability to dominate games with his passing and his defensive awareness. Like once he starts to rag the puck a little bit more, like I think he's going to get more confident with the puck. Like he's extremely confident with the puck, but I just think he'll hold it a little bit more. He'll skate with it a bit more, and he'll take his time a little bit more with the puck. He does have that ability to do that. Some people compare him, and I have made the comparison, like he's somewhere on the spectrum between, Justin Schultz to Sergei Zubov, somewhere in between those two players. And on bad nights, he does remind us of Justin Schultz, I think, where, this really strong, stellar passing game combined with kind of a soft defensive player who makes defensive mistakes. But Justin Schultz turned out to be a pretty damn good player. I think he won 2 Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh and was a key player on both of those Stanley Cup winning teams. Evan Bouchard can help the Edmonton Oilers win Stanley Cups. This coaching staff, although they're not trusting Tyler Benson right now necessarily, they are trusting him. And although I'd like to see Jesse Puljujarvi on the PK. They're trusting Jesse Puljujarvi. He played 21:53, and he
Yep.
played in overtime.
Yes.
And I think that might be one of the first times we've seen Puljujarvi in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am mistaken. But so the coaches staff do have it's not like no young players can make their way into this coaching staff's good graces. That is not true. But and Bouchard is proving it. And his time on ice tonight proves it. Final thoughts?
Had to have that win.
Yeah.
If they'd lost this game, especially in regulation, down 2-0 after the second, the odds are pretty low. But they lose this game. Like when you're outside the playoff cut line, every regulation loss is a disaster because it
Yeah.
cancels out a win. And you actually, you're even with a win and a loss in 2 games, you're falling a little bit behind the league because some other teams will have a win and an overtime loss, or there's points to be had. So once you've fallen behind, you have to start stringing wins together. And as of now, they've strung 2 wins together. They have a pretty tough team here. It's Nashville, I think, isn't it, on Thursday? But this is a task they've given themselves with this slump, is that they're going to have to start stringing some wins together, and they're going to have to beat good teams on occasion. So they're going to get a good test next game, but at least they're going to get that test with the wind at their back to some degree. They've got a 2-game winning streak, and as someone on Twitter pointed out, in the last 11 games they're 4-5-2, which isn't great, but when you consider there's a 7-game losing streak in there, it's not as completely horrific as it might be.
So they're in their Western division, Bruce. They're sixth right now. They have 42 points. San Jose is 2 points ahead of them. LA 6 points, and Anaheim 7 points. But when you look at winning percentages, Edmonton has a 553 winning percentage. San Jose has a 524 winning percentage. LA has a 558 winning percentage, and Anaheim has a 557 winning percentage. So Edmonton, LA, and Anaheim are all essentially tied in terms of winning percentage, and just very even right now. So we'll see what happens here. The Oilers are not out of the playoff race at all. Calgary only has a 595 winning percentage. And Las Vegas only has a 616 winning percentage. Like, there's no team that's dominant in this division.
Right.
And there's lots of opportunity for the Oilers to advance if they can just figure it out. And we'll see. Maybe there's some new players arriving on the scene soon. Evander Kane's name is out there, of course, but Dylan Holloway had 2 games. I didn't see them, but he played in the American Hockey League. Had 2 games. He got 3 assists. I did watch some of the highlights, and some nice passing there. Some nice passing, and we watched him last year. Yep. He is a fantastic hockey player. He's so fast, skilled, and aggressive.
Yeah,
you could see
nice
him
combination.
Making an impact in the NHL sooner than later on the wing, as a third line winger. So, just a real tough health problem kept him out of the lineup. But this is hockey. This is what happens. So, anyway, it's not all glum, Bruce. No, it's not all horrible.
No, it's been a pretty horrible few weeks, but we may be coming out the other side of that, David. And I just wonder how much some of it may have just been the whole team was down a court, with all of this, all this time off the ice, all these games where they never had the same lineup 2 games in a row, where they had people coming back that had been off the ice for 5 or 10 days, or had been hurt, and it was just like a perfect storm of crap was happening.
Shitstorm, yeah.
It perfect shitstorm, and it went, and it's just whatever could go wrong kept going wrong, and it's the old saying, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and maybe it'll be one of those in the long run, but they're going to have to survive quite a few character tests to get from here to there, and they survived one tonight. Credit where due.
Yeah, and they still need a goal. Like, you can't. Everyone's been saying, you can't count on Mikko Koskinen as your starting goalie. I think Mikko Koskinen might even say that. he can't play every game. And I guess they can go to Skinner. Like he'll be off the COVID protocol. I think he's off the COVID protocol. Is he not? So they could go
Yes.
to
He was the backup tonight.
yeah.
He
They
was.
might
Yeah.
go back. Skinner's played well, so
Hmm.
he does offer that. But they really need Mike Smith to come back and play well. And he was just put on LTIR today. I don't know what that means. Maybe that was just a paper move. The fact that
Okay.
he's going to be out long enough to warrant that, but this isn't
Twice
looking
he's
good.
been day to day and wound up on not just injured reserve, but long-term injured reserve, which is a minimum of 24 days.
Oh, is that right? So he's
Yeah.
out. He's out for a long time then
Yeah.
here.
Well, I'm not, well,
No,
I
it's
mean,
he's only
he
been out
played
like
on
10 days,
January,
Bruce.
he played on January 5th in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
So 24 days will be up on the 29th. So
Oh, okay.
that's within
Oh, okay.
close range. But
That's better news than I thought. Because he wasn't announced as out until like he was in practice. And I don't know what counts, Bruce. Like I don't know when you count it from. Do you count it from his last game or when he went off the roster
retroactive, they can make it retroactive.
to the last game he played?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So,
Well, we'll both be corrected shortly by original
mhm.
Pulsar.
Yeah, original Posar and a Puck PD will step in and set us straight if we're way off the
Yes.
mark as well.
Yeah.
So
All right.
nice to have that kind of
It
guardrails.
is. It totally is. We're not. I don't claim to be a capologist.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce. Thanks for talking tonight.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.